Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we have a new reading journal update video where we'll first chat about some books I've been reading recently while I set up pages of them in my journal, and at the end we'll set up a cover for the second quarter and talk about my upcoming reading plans. I have 3 books and book layouts to share with you today, and without further introductions, let's jump to the first one. So the first book I finished in January is A Shadow in the Ember, which is the first in the Flesh and Fire series. This is a series based in the same universe as the Blood and Ash series that I read some years ago. I have only read the first 3 books in that series though, and at the time I really enjoyed them. It was one of those book series that got me back to reading, and whenever someone asks for my favorite romantasy series, I answer either this one or ACOTAR. So I had pretty high hopes going into this book, and I must say that I was slightly disappointed. First of all, I think there are a lot of similarities between these 2 series, only this one felt like maybe the one with all the leftover ideas, but I don't know, maybe that's too harsh. So if you've never heard about this series, it's pretty standard romantasy. The main point of the story is definitely the romance and the spice. There is a fantasy world with gods and so on, but it doesn't feel super deep or unique. But that's not something I'm looking for in every romantasy book. I get that they are meant to be more of a quick entertainment, and that was actually what I was looking for when I picked up this book. So I think the biggest problem for me in this one was probably the writing. It felt very rambly, which I don't remember being a problem in the Blood and Ash series. I know that the writing in that one probably wasn't anything spectacular either, but it at least felt a little bit more cohesive and edited maybe. In this one, especially the beginning was quite long and even boring at times because I felt like the main character's inner monologue was quite repetitive and sometimes just excessive. I think the story definitely improves around the halfway mark, so there's that, but yeah, I just wasn't the biggest fan of the writing and the reading experience, and I wonder if it's because maybe I changed as a reader, or is it possible that the author didn't put as much effort into this series compared to the first one. I read some comments that the upcoming books in this series are even more rambly and repetitive, so I made the decision to not continue this series, at least for now. I have so many other interesting books in my queue that if something just doesn't really capture my attention, I just let it go. However, I think if you're a fan of romantasy and that's the genre you mostly read, in that case, I definitely recommend this one. She knows how to write the male love interest, so I think you won't be disappointed. I know I don't really explain the products I'm using while I just yap about the books, so I was using a bunch of these darker black or brown products from my own shop. The text label stickers are from Paper World, I think, and the pictures are printed on regular matte sticker paper. I'll leave all the details and links to the description. Anyway, now let's move on to the second book I read, and this is The God of the Woods. This was the winner of the Goodreads Mystery and Thriller category last year, and it has a gorgeous cover, so those were pretty much the 2 reasons I picked this up. The setting of this book is very interesting. It takes place in a children's summer camp in the 1970s, which is why I printed some of these very summery forest camp pictures. And I decided to use these Ikigai Papir sticker sheets that I thought matched the aesthetic perfectly. I think this had a lot of potential to be a 10 out of 10 read for me, but a few things kept it more in the 4-star range. So this book starts very well. The whole case is very intriguing. There are a lot of interesting characters introduced, and there are a lot of characters in this book, by the way, and multiple POVs, plus some time skips. So it can get a little bit confusing at times, but it wasn't something that bothered me necessarily. I think it almost made the book feel complicated in a good way. Anyway, I think the story slows down a little bit in the middle of the book, which I also wasn't really bothered by. I was enjoying learning more about the characters, and this is definitely the type of mystery where it feels like everyone has some kind of secret. The thing I didn't like so much though is that there were quite a few weak female characters, and I'm not someone who necessarily needs every woman character to be strong and independent. I get that it doesn't always match the story, or it's probably not even realistic. However, I felt like in this one, even the strong female characters were constantly doubting themselves. They made stupid decisions and also let other people walk all over them. So at some point, it started to frustrate me a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, it took a little bit out of the reading experience for me. But I'd say that the bigger problem for me was the ending. I don't know if I've read any reviews of this where people were happy about the ending. It was just not super satisfying and kind of made the whole amazing build-up fall a little bit flat. However, overall, I still really enjoyed this book. I gave it like 8.5 out of 10. I think the writing is good, the atmosphere is amazing, so I'd still recommend this for any mystery enjoyers. After setting up all the decorations and the title, I also used some other new products I just recently got in the mail. These were sent to me by Chiara, who recently opened her own Etsy shop, and she so kindly sent me a crazy amount of these functional journaling stickers in all possible colors. So the brown, sparkle, and alphabet stickers are from her shop, and I just posted a full unboxing reel on my Instagram where you can see the rest of the colors as well. But that's it about this spread. And lastly, we have, in my opinion, the most exciting book I read this time, which is Mistborn: The Final Empire. So this is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I'm currently reading the second one in the series. Even though I haven't finished all of the books yet, I really wanted to make a combination spread for the whole series. So we are doing something a little bit different here. If you noticed, I actually skipped one spread, which we're gonna use for the second quarter cover spread very soon. It just made more sense to me to set this in the second quarter section because I'll hopefully finish this series during the spring. Anyway, I also wanted to do something a little bit more special with the decorations. I always feel like I want to make a little bit more effort for the books that are more notable, and this series is definitely one of them. So we are doing this small Dutch door thing in the middle that will allow me to have note writing space for all three books. And then I'm gonna decorate the outer edges and also use this black craft paper to make them black. I had to sacrifice 2 pages from the end of my journal that we're gonna glue on top of the black paper to mimic the white dot grid areas. I don't like to write on black because you have to use a white pen, so that's why I wanted to keep the middle sections white. But anyway, the Mistborn series is probably the most recommended to me, and now after reading the first book, I completely see why. This is a very popular series, it has a high rating on Goodreads, and in my opinion, this is one that deserves the hype. I'd say that this is pure fantasy or fantasy sci-fi in a way, and for me, the overall vibes are something like Dune meets The Six of Crows. I don't want to spoil anything about the world because I feel like being introduced to all of that is a big part of the story, but I will say that I was highly impressed by the world and the plot in general. But I must say that I'm someone who typically reads something with romance or murder mysteries, so it's quite difficult for me to keep interest in a series where there isn't any of that as a motivation to keep reading. I'm sure many of you know what I mean, and it actually took me quite a while to finish this. I think I was reading this for over a month, but keep in mind that I don't really have that much time to read in general. I've also really been enjoying my other hobby, which is knitting during the winter months, and it's kind of one of those things that I can either knit or read on a typical workday, but I don't have time to do both. But anyway, there actually is a little bit of romance in this book. It's definitely not the main point, but it is there. But I'd say that I think the most impressive thing about this series is this underlying feeling of mystery. Whenever something new about the world or a new character is introduced, it's done in a way that makes you feel like there's more to the story and that there's some sort of secret that's yet to be uncovered. I think that made the whole reading experience very rewarding and intriguing because you just want to know how we ended up here, why the world is as it is, and how everything is going to turn out. This book also has some deeper meanings and subjects, especially about social class, religion, and the meaning of hope. So it's definitely a little bit deeper read, but very casually so. There are also some darker aspects to the world and some very cruel moments, but overall I found the reading experience to be quite cozy and enjoyable. So even those darker subjects are done in a way that doesn't feel overly heavy. So yeah, needless to say that I'm really enjoying this series. After finishing the first book, I must say that I felt like, how are there 2 more books to go? But I guess I'll find the answer to that pretty soon. So this spread is now almost done and I really like how this turned out. We'll finish it in the next reading journal video, and I would never do this for a series that I'm not sure that I'll finish, but I'm quite sure that I'll finish this one, so I think it's fine. But now all we have left is to set up the second quarter spring cover spread and write out my second quarter reading idea list. I hope you're not tired of seeing my shop's spring collection products by now, because I really wanted to use some of them on this spread. The collection is called Swan Lake and I mainly used some of the floral and paper label products on this one. So I started by lining the sides of the pages with this white peony flower washi tape and then started to layer some pictures and other items here. As you can see, it always takes a while for me to find a composition that I like. I usually do most of this thinking out of the camera, so I know it might look like I immediately find a place for all these decorations in the videos, but that's not the case in real life. I was trying to keep this a little bit more on the minimal side because I definitely have a tendency to go overboard with different patterns and pictures, and my goal with the reading journal this year is to keep the scrapbooking pages a little bit more cohesive. I added just a few of these hanging leaf stickers to the background. These are from the clear pet tape of the same collection. And then I started to glue all the background layer products and slowly work my way up to the pictures and stickers on top. I often print out these quarterly titles on the same sheets that I use to print out the pictures, and it's just one thing that speeds up the process a little bit and makes these pages look extra crisp, because I often feel like messing up the title takes away from the whole spread. But anyway, after all the decorations were in place, I wrote out my second quarter TBR ideas. So again, I'm gonna start by finishing the Mistborn series, and after that, I think I'll stick to some standalones for a while. The first one I listed is The Frozen River, which is a book I actually wanted to read in January, but I realized that it was not on Kindle yet. I live in Japan, so it's a little bit difficult for me to access physical English books, but I believe that this is now available on Kindle. This is some sort of historical fiction murder mystery that I've heard good things about, and it seems very promising. And after this one, I listed quite a few romance novels because I think the spring is the perfect time to read romance. The first one is one that recently ended up on my radar, which is The Unmaking of June Farrow. This is some kind of fantasy, romance, magical realism type of book. I read one other book from this writer years ago, and I remember the writing being pretty good, so I wanted to give this a go. Then after this, I listed 2 romance series. The first one is the Regency Fairy Tales, which I think was recommended by one of you guys. And the next one is the Girl Meets Duke series, which I found after Googling something like Pride and Prejudice but spicier. Don't even judge me, I know that's what we all want. Anyway, this seemed like a very fun series, so I think I might pick it up at some point this year. And then a few other books are For Her Consideration, which has been on my TBR forever. This is a contemporary rom-com, which is not my typical genre, but I definitely want to read at least one this year. I feel like this could be a good summer read as well though. And then if I'm in a mood for a murder mystery instead of all these romances for some reason, I also listed The Word is Murder, which is the first book in the Hawthorne and Horowitz series, which I believe was described to be some kind of Sherlock Holmes type murder mystery series. I thought this would be a little bit more on the cozier side of all the crime and thriller books on my list. So yeah, that's it for my spring reading list. I really hope I get to read at least 2 or 3 of these after finishing the Mistborn series. As always, I love to hear what you guys been reading, and if you have any good recommendations, especially if you have recommendations for your favorite contemporary romance, something that you think absolutely every romance enjoyer should read. I would love to hear your recommendations in the comments. But I guess that's all for today. I really hope you got some new inspiration or reading ideas. If this was your first time around here and you'd like to stay tuned for more, definitely consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye!